Joining us now, well, we just had Terry McAuliffe on, the governor of Virginia, Governor McGenius. We call him, bringing all these jobs in, but he's not running for re-election because he's one term and done. That's the Virginia Constitution. But joining us now, another former governor, Terry McAuliffe, soon to be former governor, a former governor of Virginia, former senator of Virginia, and a good friend of the John Fredericks Show, Governor George Allen. Governor, great to have you with us, sir.
Hey, good morning, John. I'm glad you're on AM 1260 in the Northern Virginia area, so you can bring your light and information to listeners in this region of the state. I did get to hear the end of Governor McAuliffe's statements and comments, and it's interesting to hear his perspectives of things. And there's probably one thing that we do agree on, that the number one responsibility, at least that was a priority when I was governor, of a governor, is as a salesperson, as an ambassador, as a promoter of a state, and to try to bring in more investment and more jobs. And we were very successful in that. Over 300,000 net new jobs were created during my 4-year term. In fact, I like to point out a quote from one of Governor McAuliffe's press releases, where when I was governor, we doubled the number of enterprise zones. And enterprise zones are where you have lower taxes, prompter permitting, and the result is more investment and more jobs. And so there's a press release that Governor McAuliffe's office puts out when businesses go into an enterprise zone. He says, well, since this was put into effect in 1995, over $1 billion of investment has gone into enterprise zones, and over 40,000 jobs were created. He doesn't mention who was the initiator of it, but I always use that as evidence of it. And for your listeners, when you think of how we're going to get more jobs, make Virginia more competitive, I think Ed Gillespie's got the best ideas to do that. But here are the factors. These are the ingredients for success in getting more jobs and more opportunities for the people of a state, or a country for that matter. But for a state, the businesses are going to look at the cost of doing business, and that's what's your comparative tax burden? Do you have prompt permitting? What's your regulatory costs? What are your costs of electricity? That's a really important factor. Are you a right-to-work law state? In other words, people are not compelled to join a union as a condition of work, and the fact that Virginia is the furthest state north on the eastern seaboard with a right-to-work law is a great competitive advantage. Businesses also want safe communities, and they want a skilled, capable, well-educated workforce to be able to, the talent to get the job done. And the states that do well are those in economic development, are those who have those ingredients. And so those are the important factors. And I think Ed Gillespie's got the right ideas, the right policies and plans to make Virginia a much more competitive state for investment and better paying jobs.
So, Governor George Allen, one of the things that McAuliffe said a few moments ago, criticizing Republicans and Gillespie, he said, look, if the Republican majorities in the state Senate and the House of Delegates pass a ban or pass the defund Planned Parenthood, and Ed Gillespie signs it, then that's going to choke jobs off, choke big companies coming to Virginia. How do you respond to that?
Well, I don't think that in particular would. If you obviously what North Carolina passed, which was that whatever they called it, HB2, and
right. The bathroom bill.
And if a state passes something that is looked upon as discriminatory against people on account of their race or religion or sexual orientation or gender and so forth, that is going to hurt. Whether there's an appropriation for Planned Parenthood or not is not going to be a factor. By the logic of that, by saying, gosh, if you don't fund Planned Parenthood in a state, Amazon or some business isn't going to go there. I don't know what the situation is in a lot of other southern and western states, but I doubt if Texas is going to get knocked out, or Georgia or Florida or whatever others, or Nashville, Tennessee, based on whether Planned Parenthood is funded or not. That's not any sort of discrimination against anyone.
So, okay, I kind of agree with that. I think the whole Planned Parenthood defunding is a red herring.
Yeah.
Just
well,
my view.
It's kind of a flag to rally certain folks to the Democratic Party's side, but I don't think that's an issue that's going to matter. What's going to matter, the criteria that a business will look at again are going to be, what's the cost of doing business? What are your electricity costs? Are you right to work? Are you safe? Is there a skilled, capable workforce? There'll be other companies that will care about having access to natural gas, and so having a natural gas will matter. Others will care about an international airport. Others will care about possibly having mass transit. So those are the kind of criteria. I cannot imagine some economic developer and the person working for a company saying, all right, this state is a right to work state. There's a great international airport. They have a great workforce. The taxes are low, prompt permitting, affordable electricity, this, that, and the other. And the other thing, we got to make sure they're funding Planned Parenthood. And then if that's the case, how much are you supposed to fund them? I just don't see that as being an issue. Now, if they thought that their employees would be discriminated against, I could see that obviously being an impediment. But a funding issue like that is not going to be the salient determination of where a location is decided.
Oh, spot on. Let's talk Redskins, Virginia. What are the chances?
Redskins players are standing for the national anthem, by the way.
That's right.
The only time they kneeled was in the victory formation at the end.
That's right. Very good. That's a good one, Governor. That's right. They did the victory formation. They had one play, and they did kneel for that. But about 6 San Francisco players kneeled. We were counting all the Redskins staff, everybody standing up, everybody in the stands standing up. And I'm just saying that this, San Francisco is not a bad team. They got a pretty solid defensive line. They shut the Washington's run game down cold, and they've lost 6 games by 2 points, 3 points, 5 points, 6 points. They're in every game to the end. They lose. I don't know. Maybe it's the national anthem gods not smiling on them or something.
Well, maybe, but maybe the players are worrying about what they do during the national anthem with the United States flag, as you saw, was right in front of the 49ers sideline. They're worrying more about that than focusing on football, which is what they ought to do. But I do hope the 49ers beat Dallas this next Sunday, but I doubt they will.
Well, they're not that bad. I mean, they're not really an 0-6 team because every game they're in right up until the end. So any chance we can get the Redskins to Virginia? What are the odds on this?
The odds. You're great, John. The odds. Let me just say this about the Redskins' future stadium. They have till 2017 on the lease at FedEx Field right now in Prince George's County, Maryland. And I know Bruce, my brother Bruce, who's president of the team, is looking at several, I think, very good options for the Redskins. They all have merit, and I think they'll be good for the fans, whichever one they choose, as well as for the team. So they're in the preliminary parts. I know Governor McAuliffe and Governor Hogan of Virginia and Maryland, respectively, as well as some folks in the District of Columbia are proposing various sites. But those are all confidential discussions. But I think that ultimately the Redskins will be in a stadium that is, I think, easier to get in and out of for the fans than the current facility.
All right. Well, that was a very politically correct answer, Governor.
Diplomatic, and you just can't be divulging such matters.
That's very good. All right, we're going to open the phone lines up. If you have a question for former Governor George Allen, you can call on the acspecials.net truth line. You want to put it in your phone if you don't have it, 888-480-JOHN, 888-480-5646, 888-480-5646, or you can text us in real time, 757-692-1710, 757-692-1710. Now, Governor, how does Ed Gillespie win this race? I mean, you were elected in Virginia statewide a number of times. You kind of figured this whole thing out. How does Ed Gillespie win this race on November 7th?
Well, the world's controlled by those who show up, and so I think what's essential is to get out the vote. This is not going to have the turnout that you had in the presidential race, and that nor does it ever. I think that Ed needs to motivate and inspire people towards his ideas, and I do think that his plans, he's ready to govern. I'm honorary chairman of his policy efforts, and he has very detailed plans that I think really going to make Virginia a more prosperous, more competitive Commonwealth, and also safer communities, and improving a lot of things that need reforms or improvements in a variety of ways. One thing I brought up, for example, was the right to work law. Now,
right.
And I know Lieutenant Governor Northam, he's a VMI grad, so forth, but to get the nomination in their party, he went far left and in fact, has criticized and not supported our right to work law. Now, if anybody who's governor of Virginia knows, the first thing you say, and comparing Virginia to other states, is we're the furthest state north on the eastern seaboard with the right to work law. And so how anyone could not be strongly 100% behind the right to work law, which again means that a man or woman as a condition of work does not have to pay union dues as a condition of employment. It's a liberty issue as well as an economic advantage issue. Even unionized businesses prefer right to work law states because you end up with better labor management relationships, and the unions have to actually show their worth to employees to get the dues. So that's an important issue, and it may not be known by most of your listeners or voters, but just believe me, it is an essential component of Virginia's attractiveness for attracting and also companies expanding in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So Ed's working hard. I know Vice President Pence was with him down in Southwest Virginia. He's, I think, doing a tremendous job in trying to get his message out. John Adams and Jill Vogel are both working really hard as well. And I think it's going to be a very close election. The polls, I think polling these days, John, you can look at polls and look at them, I think, with a grain of salt, because I think it's harder. You talk to any genuine pollster, and they'll tell you it's harder than ever to accurately poll. And so I think it's going to be a very close race, and I think Ed can win. I think he'll do great west of the Blue Ridge. I think he'll do great in Southside Virginia. I think he's going to do surprisingly well in the Hampton Roads area. And I do think in the Richmond area and in Northern Virginia, those are going to be really key areas, but I think Ed can cut into what the Democrats normally get out of Northern Virginia, especially in a presidential year compared to a governor's year. And I think that Ed can win this race, and I think Jill Vogel's in a good position to win, as well as John Adams. If people will get to know John Adams, he's a good, solid, strong individual who'd be an attorney general who will actually defend and uphold the laws of Virginia rather than create them.
Well, Governor, we're out of time, but don't forget former President Barack Obama, who's beloved by many in the Democratic Party. He's coming to Richmond on Thursday to get out the vote and inspire a Democratic turnout amongst hardcore Democrats, the African-American community. Gillespie's got to do something to offset that, because that is going to make a big difference in the Ralph Northam for Governor campaign, and that is Thursday. Governor, we're out of time. I want to thank Governor George Allen for being with us, and all of our listeners. Stay with us.